Another one. Another one. Touchdown, Jags! Ball game!
Another Jags podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another Jags podcast, episode 60, a milestone episode, you could say. As always, it is Joey, Jason, and myself tonight, bringing all of the Jaguars talk to you. Before we get to our Twitter questions tonight, which is really going to dictate the episode, we want to remind everyone that we are, in fact, on Twitter at Another Jags Pod. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Another Jags Podcast. You can also search us on YouTube, Another Jags Podcast. Real quick, I had a listener today tell me if I were on Twitter, I would be blowing you all up with questions. But look, that is not the only way to ask questions. Go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go on YouTube. You have access to all those. Ask us questions there. It doesn't have to be on Twitter, although I will say that that is probably where we are most active. But we'll look for all sorts of ways that you can ask us questions because we want to include all the listeners, as many as want to be included on the show. And the proof is in the pudding, and we're going to get right to that tonight. We're going to answer your questions and talk about really, especially this last week with the Jaguars in kind of the second or even third wave of free agency and the players that the Jaguars added. The big splash, obviously, Nick Foles. We talked about that last week. You can listen to episode 59 if you want to hear that. But tonight we're going to move on from that and talk about some other things. So without any further ado, Jason, let's get to it.
All right, there's a lot of Twitter questions tonight, so that's great. That's awesome. So we're just gonna pick some randomly. So if we'll address your question if it's a double question.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna start with
Jason bought a new house and he's freshly painted, so I think some of the fumes have got to
the
him.
paint has got.
Is that an essential oils?
That is lavender, or it's eucalyptus.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Eucalyptus is nice.
It changes colors.
I am very calm and a little lightheaded, so everything's working.
That's the eucalyptus.
We have one of those, and when we first got it, when it would turn off, it scared the crap out of me.
That one's silent.
Someone was in the house. We need one of those then.
All right, this first question is from Andrew Charles, and he's at Charles.
Please say in charge.
What?
Is it Charles in charge? Is that where he's at?
Is Charles ASC2?
Oh, that's
he missed
Charles.
it.
That's a letdown.
Okay, Jason, do you know what Charles in charge is?
Did you get that reference?
No, not at all.
Scott Baio? Really?
Buddy?
All right. So everybody
is this a joke or
over 30 years old? Charles in charge.
Yeah.
That's who tweeted it.
What's the guy's name again? Andrew Charles?
Andrew Charles, yeah.
Change it to Charles in charge.
All right, well, Andrew Charles says, if they want to address right tackle in the draft, then do you think Jawan Taylor at 7 or possibly Risner, Ford, Tillery, Little, etc. in the second would be the better shot? The latter would allow for a playmaking tight end. Hawk, Risner, or Jawan and Irv Smith. So he's saying, basically he's asking, do you take tight end first round, lineman second round, or lineman first round, tight end second round?
Does anybody, okay, with that, assuming no trading back, because that's a crapshoot, right?
I mean, yeah, assuming no trading back, yes.
Okay, because again, I still think if we're not trading back, we take Hockenback, the Hawkster. But with that question there, does anybody think Jawan Taylor is the right pick if we are going right tackle?
If we're going right tackle, yes. But I'll say this. I actually said on last week's episode that I think that's who they're going to get. And maybe I even said that's who they should get. And I'm going to back off that because I think as much as right tackle is a need, along with tight end, I just don't think either one of those positions is necessarily a 7th overall pick. I think you can get value at tight end in the second round. I think you can get right tackle value in the second round as well, or maybe even the third round. And I just cannot shake the fact that I think they are going to go defense with that pick. I think it's going to happen.
So it would have to be a defensive lineman, right?
Defensive lineman. Unless you consider Josh Allen.
No, he's a D lineman.
Even D lineman.
Yeah.
I mean, they have him listed, I think, at linebacker, but it's an edge.
No, he's an edge.
Type.
Yeah, he's an edge.
I think there's a very real possibility that 3 quarterbacks are taken before the Jags draft. You have Arizona taking Murray. You could have Oakland taking Haskins, and you can have the Giants taking fill in the blank, probably lock. And then that then leaves three defensive players taken before the Jags. And this is such a rich draft in defense. We're not talking enough about the fact that Dante Fowler is not on the team anymore. And people would argue that he wasn't a starter, but actually, I got to give him credit. Frank Frangie said on the radio the other day, he did start in every nickel package, which is the majority of the defensive snaps. So in that sense, we have lost a starter. So who takes his place? Do you give that to McCray? Do you give that to Smoot? Are you comfortable enough to pass on a stud, legit defensive player at 7 to have those two guys fill Dante Fowler's shoes?
Well, I mean, I think they like Taven Bryan, and I think they like
But that's not Fowler's
Juwan
position.
Smoot. I think they like Ngakoue, Calais Campbell.
Who is going to be on the team for how much longer?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, every day that goes by, I'm with that more and more. I do think that Jonah Williams isn't getting enough talk at the lineman position. Was originally slated to be the first offensive lineman taken. A lot of people said that. He's kind of fallen now to the second behind Juwan Taylor, which doesn't really make sense to me because I like Florida, but Juwan Taylor is kind of a raw player, and he's big. He kind of reminds me of like a Eugene Monroe type player, whereas Jonah Williams is like technical, and he is everything you want in a lineman on film, and his kick step, his punch, his angles, everything he does is good. So
Jonah Williams is the Alabama guy, right?
Right, yeah, Alabama, and
Which
he can play
he was
left
like the number one guy like
for a
before
while, yeah,
combine, before everything.
but he's kind of fallen lately, and he can play guard. I mean, he can flex. I mean, I don't know. I would like to see a lineman, but at the same time, the more I'm watching Hawkinson, the more I'm kind of liking him. And I actually was watching some film. I mean, I've been watching his highlights, and everyone's highlights look good, and Hawkinson's highlights look good, but I just can't shake the fact that he's wide open all the time. Like, he is just wide open. If you go back and watch, he has a couple plays where he makes spectacular catches on defenders. But the majority of his touchdown receptions at Iowa he was just wide open. That's why Noah Fant is also a highly rated. I mean, he's athletic, but that Iowa scheme against those Big Ten defenses, we're just getting these guys wide open. And they're just running open, and then the quarterback's throwing it where it needs to be. And I like them, but it's hard for me to justify taking a tight end at 7. You don't pick top 10 very often, and you need to make it count.
Everyone keeps saying that Hawkinson and Font are going to be first-round picks. I'm asking why. Why all of a sudden does everyone... I can see Hawkinson being a tight end taken in the first round, but Font too? 2 tight ends now in the first round? You rare... I mean, when was the last time we've seen 2 tight ends taken in the first round? Last year was a very heavy tight end draft, and there was 1 taken in the first round, and then Goddard was the next one taken in the, I think, halfway through the second round. So there's this assumption that both of those guys are going to be gone when the Jags pick in the second round, and I'm kind of scratching my head as why all of a sudden everyone thinks that that's going to be the case. And I'm not arguing Hawkinson's ability, but I just don't think GMs and coaches put that kind of value on tight end. So that's why I just don't see it happening, because it never happens. Never. So why all of a sudden would it now? At 7, 17, okay. 15, yes. But 7? That's so high.
Well, Font is like a crazy athlete. Like, his intangibles just blow through the roof. And I'm not saying that's a reason. I'm just saying I think that's why he's moved up. Hawkinson looks like a carbon copy of George Kittle for the 49ers, who set a single-season tight end receiving yards record this last year. So this last year, 2018, we had the single-season reception broken by a tight end, by Zach Ertz, and we also had the single-season receiving yards for a tight end broken by George Kittle for the 49ers. So in 1 year, like the way the NFL is going, we're seeing the movement toward tight end. But my only issue is you have Kittle, you have Ertz, and you have Kelsey. Those 3 guys in the NFL are elite. there's a sharp drop off after those three. You get into a tier of guys like Hunter Henry and OJ Howard and guys that are good, but they're not going to affect the game. So banking on the fact that one of these tight ends is going to become an elite guy in that elite tier is asking a lot from me.
Dude, if we draft best available again and not draft for need, I'm going to lose my mind.
If the best available is a D lineman though, and
I will lose my mind on that.
We lost Fowler and we lost
great,
Blake Jackson in one offseason.
Okay, great. Understand. You've already said Taven Bryan. You've already said there's people coming back healthy. My point is our offense, other than Foles and possibly Leonard Fournette, is a disaster. We're not fixing wide receiver in free agency or the draft.
But there might not be value at 7 is the issue.
Okay, I get that that's the issue. I get the value. I'm talking about for the Jaguars. I'm not talking about overall value. And James, you guys have said it. Yeah, tight ends. Why would you take Fant? Why are all these tight ends being? Because the game's switched to that. The game's favoring receivers. They're favoring quarterbacks. They're against defenses. And you're getting a stretch tight end and a run blocking tight end. He's the only one that can do both.
Okay, let's just say, though, because I don't agree with that in terms of drafting for need over drafting versus the best player available. Because let's just, in theory, you have Hawkinson, who's the best tight end, but then you have a guy who's going to be on the defensive line who is going to be a Pro Bowl caliber draft pick. And I'm not saying Hawkinson isn't, but let's say, for instance, I feel like this is why teams get in trouble, is because they look at a need and they bypass players that are better NFL players to get a need, and then they lose out on these stud players, in the draft. And then, I would rather have the guy that's going to be amazing and find a place for him to play on the team versus trying to plug a hole with a guy that's just going to be an average player at his position.
Well, yeah, then we should tank the next 2 years and go for a stud quarterback a couple years from now. I mean, the position we're in, we don't have that leverage. We don't have that ability.
We got Foles for at least 2 years.
Agreed. And we've got nothing around him. They're not making decisions. They're not making picks based on 2, 3, 4 years from now. They're making picks based on being good next year and maybe the year after. They want to win now.
They do, and that's a great point, because do you think with, who knows what the agreement is with Shad Khan and the triple, threat of Marone and Coughlin and Caldwell, if he said, look, you guys have a few years now, or if this is it, we don't know. But assuming that this is a prove-it year for those three, do you think that they're going to go all in with the 7th overall pick with a tight end?
I think they absolutely will, outside of trading back just falling in our laps. I mean, you can't bank on that, though, and they haven't. They haven't banked on trading up, trading back. They've banked on what is the best decision we can make right now to be good again next year. Hey, if trading back works, then fantastic, because we should definitely trade back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. Yes, that should happen. But, dude, that's way easier said than done. If at 7 we're sitting there and Haskins or Hawkinson is available, I think you take either one of them.
I don't know, man. I don't know. You're telling me, okay, so let's say, I don't know if 3 quarterbacks will be gone by the time the Jags pick.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
It's not, but I just don't see it happening. I think maybe 2, but I don't think 3.
I think 2 are gone because Allen is going to go somewhere. If Arizona's taken...
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen's got to go somewhere. Or Josh Rosen, right?
Rosen, sorry.
Yeah, Josh Rosen's got to go somewhere. But, so, what if Josh Allen is there at our pick?
Well, you have to take him.
What if Montez Sweat is there at our pick?
Yes. I mean, these guys are, I mean, you can't dictate what type of draft it's going to be, but I think you need to cater to it when it happens. This is a defensive heavy draft, and it's unfortunate for the Jags that that's the case, because we do, I mean, I agree 100%, Joey. We have, our offense is, but I think when you start to panic and just fill those roles just because, and you're passing on guys that are going to be absolute studs, then you end up picking in the top 10 every year.
Dude, I'm not saying we should stretch. I'm not saying we should stretch for a quarterback. I'm not saying we should stretch for a running back. I'm not saying we should stretch for a wide receiver, because none of those 3 are anywhere close to a 7th overall pick. I'm saying for what we have right now, Hawkinson, by all measure, is ideal to make our wide receivers better, to make our running backs better, to make our quarterback better.
I hope so, because I mean, if they take him, he better be as advertised, and maybe he will be, maybe he will be, but I'm iffy with it.
I am.
If Rashawn Gary is there from Michigan, would you take him?
I don't know enough about him. I'm not.
Because right now he's getting mocked to like 8, 7, and 6.
What position is he?
He's an edge from Michigan. He's the guy that sat out against Florida.
Oh, right,
Totally
yeah.
changed the team. I mean, he's a good player, but he's now the 4th best edge guy behind Nick Bosa, Josh Allen, Montez Sweat.
If we go defense with the first pick, I will be upset. I'm just putting that out there.
You've mentioned that once or twice.
I'll mention it from now. We got lots of months, man.
Yeah.
That's our defense, regardless of who we've lost.
This is what is so frustrating.
Not the problem.
This is what is so frustrating. If the Jags had listened to us last draft, we would have Dallas Goedert on the team, and we would be licking our chops to draft defense.
Yep.
But now we're in this predicament that we're in because they jumped the gun. And I'll just leave it at that.
We can leave. It's all Caldwell's fault. Put it on that. Last draft sucked.
You think he's making all the decisions himself?
No.
I think last draft he was making a lot of them. This year I don't think he's making hardly any of them.
All right, let's move on because I think some of these other questions are going to touch on some of this other stuff. This next question is from Rob, and he's at ZenoRob with 2 B's. And he asks, should we trade down? Then keep trading down right out of the first and give TC and DC a shotgun approach to this draft, given the scouting for later rounds tends to be stronger anyways.
So you're saying trade out of the first round so we don't have a first round pick?
And just stock up on second and thirds.
No.
Dude, I think that's like the Madden approach to like real football. Yeah, great. We'll trade back into the first round or back into the second round. That's a lot easier said than done.
I mean,
especially
Bill Belichick does it all the time.
Well, okay, let's talk about the greatest maybe coach of all time.
I don't think it takes a great coach to keep trading back, though.
Okay, it doesn't take a great coach to keep trading back, but it takes a great coach to keep trading back and make good picks that turn out. I mean,
but he makes a good point. I mean, these guys draft better in the later rounds, in the second and third. How many first round picks have these guys hit on?
Agreed. They do have more second, third round picks.
I like this idea. I hadn't thought about this. Give them 6 picks between the second and third round. How many home runs are they going to hit in there? At least 2? Right?
Hey,
given their history?
As long as they don't make defensive picks at that point, then
even
fantastic.
if they do. Look at the guys they've drafted in the later rounds. I mean, hey, I'm kind of jumping on board on this.
And you got to pay them less?
I mean, who would we drafted in the first round?
Okay. Who is this guy?
We got
Jason,
Jalen.
is that your alter Twitter?
No, but I like it. I don't think it's realistic, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it, Rob.
I mean, has anybody ever traded completely out of the first round?
Dude, Bill Belichick does it every other year.
Yeah, but with all extra picks though, like getting rid of like a quarterback and then not with like his actual.
You can do
picks.
it if you want. You can do it. People are always looking for your picks.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I just don't trust them to do that right. I don't trust our front office.
I mean, I did just say if you're drafting in the top 10, you got to take advantage of it, and that's how I would feel if I was the GM. But just knowing these guys, this guy makes a good point. But if you're picking top 10, you got to take advantage of that, don't you? It's like the NBA lottery. Like
yes.
Those top picks are valuable.
I mean, that'd be like a team saying like they just don't want to spend any money or something at that point. I mean, you don't give up your 7th round pick unless you can trade back in the first round and get somebody that you really need.
But let me throw this hypothetical at you.
I like it.
Let me throw this hypothetical at you. Would you trade this year's first for next year's first from another team and next year's second from another team?
Oh,
I mean, I just don't know what's coming out next year outside of quarterback, and we've already paid our quarterback. So based on my knowledge, I would say no. But I mean, if there's stud wide receivers coming out next year, maybe stud running backs if Fournette doesn't turn out, I wouldn't be opposed to that if there's talent that I'm not aware of, which is very likely.
I mean, if this is a win now year, like they seem to be saying, then you can't do that.
Yep, that's
you,
what I'm
you
thinking.
can't. So, if they were picking in the late 20s, I'd say absolutely. But
again, let's say Foles comes in and we win 8 or 9 games and he looks like a stud. He is everything everybody's saying he is, but he just doesn't have the tools around him. And there's a unbelievable wide receiver coming out next year, and Fournette, sucks this year, and there's a great, you know what I mean? Like, that could make sense if Foles is the guy.
Yeah, it could.
But again, those are, Madden-like theory. You can't do that as like a real football team.
Right. Okay.
I mean, yeah, that sounds great,
All right,
but
fine.
you can't base your whole
Excuse
strategy
me,
on
Joey, for thinking optimistically.
It wasn't you. It was a great question. I'm just saying, like, as I think through it, like, as a business person, you can't do things like that.
All right. This is the last question about the draft from Twitter. And this is from Brent Papineau, and he's at Brent Papineau. Haskins there at 7. Have had teams call to trade up that want him, but not good enough offers. Draft Haskins, then trade to get a better deal. If not, still have a great backup. Personally, I believe we draft an offensive lineman. So I guess the question would be would you draft Haskins if he's there?
Yes. I absolutely think if Haskins is on the board at 7, the Jaguars should take him. And I know that's not maybe necessarily the most popular take, but to me, you can't have enough quarterbacks. And let's just say hypothetically that Nick Foles gets injured, which, I'm not sure what his injury history is, but it's possible. Then who do we have after that? And I think
Cody Kessler.
Do we? I mean,
as of now,
is he on the roster?
Yeah.
Okay, we have Cody Kessler. We've seen what he can do. I love it. I think I would be ecstatic if that happened. It's like in baseball, you can't have enough pitching. I think the same can be true for the NFL with quarterbacks. You have 2 stud quarterbacks on your roster. That's a good problem to have. So I would be all for that happening. I actually think if he's on the board, that's what they should do. I don't necessarily think they will, but I think that they should.
I have to agree with James, man. I don't get the whole... If we could have guaranteed Haskins was there, we wouldn't have drafted Foles or gotten Foles in free agency. So if he's there and we have Foles, you absolutely take him. Who cares? It doesn't cost you a lot. And you have security at that point. You have Foles, which has proven that he's a guy that can mentor somebody. He's okay with that. He can sit the bench if he needs to and come in when you need him. I mean, yeah, we wouldn't have that for multiple years, but dude, why wouldn't you? If Foles turns out to be the man, then you have trade bait with Haskins. I mean, that's like ideal.
Or you keep Haskins and trade Foles.
Exactly. Either way, you're in a win-win, man.
According to Adam Schefter, the following teams...
I'm sorry, Adam who?
Adam Schefter.
Oh, I don't...
Is he on Charles in Charge?
Schefter.
Yeah.
He's on Charles and Company, whatever show
Close enough.
you old people like to watch. It's probably on Netflix. I bet you guys still watch
I wish
Netflix,
it was.
too.
I wish it was.
I wish you remember the name of
Watching Netflix right now. I'd be asleep.
What was the daughter's name on that show?
Nicole Eggert.
Nicole Eggert.
Wow.
Yeah, Google that.
According to Schefter, the following teams have scheduled workouts with Dwayne Haskins. The Raiders, the Dolphins, the Redskins, the Broncos, and the Giants.
Okay, so 2 teams picking ahead of the Jaguars.
Noticeably absent from that list, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we haven't even scheduled a workout with Dwayne Haskins.
Because I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I bet they will. They schedule workouts with guys all the time.
I don't think they're even thinking about drafting him at all. And I don't think they even wanted him, even if he were to fall. Or I don't think they would have signed Foles to the contract they did. I think they have no desire in Haskins whatsoever.
Okay, well, stop there for a second. How do you say that if he would have fallen? That's like hey, we're going to base our entire offensive strategy next year on if Haskins falls to us.
Because here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if they liked him enough to take him at 7, they would have liked him enough to trade up to get him.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You would have had to have traded up to number 1 to guarantee that you would get him. Because nobody knew what Nobody knew what Kyler Murray was
You could trade to 3.
No, you couldn't. You couldn't risk that. You give all that up to go to 3, and then he's not available at 3.
You could trade to 2.
You could. Okay,
I see what you're saying, but I don't think they had any interest in Haskins whatsoever. And I mean, Haskins has only played for 1 season.
And again, that's a great point.
And I just don't think they did. And I think they would rather go with a guy like Foles and then just reevaluate after 2 years.
I mean, I think Foles is the right decision, but that's not the question.
I'm going to say it again because that list you just read, and this is off topic, but I just want to go on record and saying again, my bold prediction for the draft this year is that 3 quarterbacks will be taken before the Jags pick at 7. I think the Raiders are going to take a quarterback. John Gruden loves quarterbacks, and I think the Giants are going to panic and take Drew Lock. I just feel it. It's going to happen.
Rosen's going to get traded to someone, though.
Well, yeah, I know. There was some rumors floating around last week that he's going to go to the Giants, but
It's Giants or Miami?
why would they trade for Rosen when they can get their own guy and not have to give anything up?
Because Rosen is...
Plus, Gettleman, the GM for the Giants, I mean, that guy's all over the place. He's kind of a wild card.
You could get Rosen for 3rd.
That's true. And it's possible. Well, if they do trade for him on the draft, I consider that a three quarterback taken as a technicality.
If you consider that as a 3rd, then I might be with you.
Okay.
Because I think Haskins and Murray will go as before the Jags.
Right.
All right. So I think we're going to transition here for the Twitter questions and get away from the draft a little bit.
Is that possible?
According to our Twitter feed,
okay,
it is. All right. So now we're going to move on to one of our newest free agent signings, linebacker Jake Ryan, who was signed from the Green Bay Packers. He had a torn ACL last year, and Packer fans were excited about him until that, obviously. And he's one of those guys that everyone's kind of rooting for, I've noticed, the Packers fans. We have 2 questions about him. So the first one's from Brad Harvin, and he's at the rundown_BH. And he says, what are the expectations for Jake Ryan? And the next question about him was from Mike Wilbraham, and his is kind of 2-tiered. And his is, what's your take on Conley and Ryan, starters or pure depth? And we'll get to his second part of the question later. So we'll just start with Jake Ryan right now. So what are your expectations for Jake Ryan?
I have no expectations for Jake Ryan. I think it's a good signing. I'm not knocking it at all, but just in the nature of free agency and when he was signed, I have 0 expectations for him. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. So don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm just going to say, okay, they signed him good. See what he can do, but I'm not going to pin my hopes on the Jaguar season on this signing whatsoever.
Okay.
Again, I have no expectations whatsoever. If you think the guy's good, you don't necessarily give him up. I don't really know what Green Bay's salary cap situation looks like, but he's coming off a major injury, but there's a lot of upside. I mean, I think we got him for a value. So if he turns out to be anything, then it's a bonus.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of his tape today before he got hurt, and he plays on the strong side. So basically, he's in the game to stop the run. That's basically his job. So whatever side the line or whatever side the tight end lines up to, whatever side the heavy side of the formation is, he lines up to. He's really good at shooting the gap. Okay, so let's say hypothetically there's a run play, linemen open up a gap. He recognizes the gap really quick, and he gets to that gap really quick. He made one good play I watched against Minnesota, Week 10. I think was the last week Week 10 was the last week he played before he got hurt. He had like 10 tackles. Best game of the season before he got hurt. He shed a block and made a tackle in the gap. The very next play, he read the gap again, got into the gap, bounced off the block, and overran the play. So he's good. He has good what we call play recognition. He is kind of like a young Puzz.
That's exactly what I was about to try to interrupt you and say.
Right, he is. He is. And
Jack sucked at that last year.
I know, and I was trying to get away from that comparison because he's a stocky white dude, and I didn't want to be like, oh, he's paused because
that's what we missed last year.
I know,
man.
but he is that. And I don't know if he's as good. He's
young. I mean,
yeah, but he's the same type of guy who's good against the run, will meet you in the gap, and can't cover.
I mean, if he's paused 1.3, then
that's probably what
Jack can do what he does, then I'm good.
Yeah, I anticipate him kind of taking over for the role that we kind of thought Leon Jacobs would be last year, and I expect him to play like 33% of the snaps in our base formation with 3 linebackers.
And that was a great pickup because I mean we're not paying him Jack, and
it was a good pickup. It really was a good pickup.
Yeah,
it was. It was a good value pick, like you guys said. All right, and the other part of Mike Wilbraham's, and he's at Abe for Lincoln. His question is, what about Mike Conley, the wide receiver from the Chiefs? He says...
Chris Conley, a.k.a. Mike.
Chris Conley, not to be confused with Mike Conley. He says, what's your take on him? How do you see the depth chart at wide receiver, assuming there's no more acquisitions?
I'm going to totally contradict myself in what I just said about Jake Ryan, the linebacker. I love this signing, and I don't have like any reason except for the fact that it was a $1.8 million contract. When you compare that to last year's Dante Moncrief signing of $10 million, I think Conley has way more upside. You know, he was the third receiver on the Chiefs last year behind, you know, Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins. So, you know, kind of buried a little bit, but underneath those two excellent receivers. So I think, you know, again, kind of going back to what Joey just said about free agency and, you know, teams don't let certain players go if they're, but I don't know. I love this signing. I love this signing mainly because they did get him for so cheap. But I think immediately when he signed, he came out and said, started talking about Foles and how much he's respected in the league and how that's the reason why he came here. And I mean, he's a big body, you know, 205, 6'3", ran a 4.3 something at the combine. I mean, so he's got a lot of, I mean, he played at Georgia, so he was, you know, obviously highly recruited. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'll just say I love this signing because at $1.8 million, even if he's average or mediocre at best, it's a good signing.
Hey, he's the one guy so far that I'll do a cannonball in the deep end of the pool for. First of all, because he's offense, he's wide receiver. Second of all, because, yeah, you don't pick up a good guy in free agency unless a team's got cap issues. And KC, man, they're paying a lot of people. So it could have strictly been, we'd love to keep this guy, but we can't. So we got to let somebody go. We got to, you know, pay other people. We're going to let him go. And, dude, we don't have that guy. I mean, just because you
don't have a tall, fast guy?
No, we don't have a tall, fast guy.
We don't. We just drafted one.
Second round?
Last year.
Yeah, and he has proven that he's a great special teams guy and is not ready for the NFL yet. He doesn't catch the ball. So 4'3", 205, tall guy, I'll take that. That's a great signing. Lots of upside.
It's, to me, again, it's a great signing for me because it's $1.8 million. I mean, that's nothing. Yeah. So
it doesn't work out.
You know,
so what?
And in fairness, the same thing with Jake Ryan. I don't know exactly how much they got for him, but it wasn't much. So I really look. We say things about Dave Caldwell a lot. I have to give him credit for really both of those signings, but especially the Connolly. For some reason, we talked last week about the possibility of Jordy Nelson being a signing for the Jags. This is way better, in my opinion. Way better.
Way better. No concussions. Way faster.
Younger.
Okay,
here's what I like. I like that we got him so cheap. I mean, and considering that Moncrief got a 2-year, $9 million deal from the Steelers. But here's what I don't like. I don't like the fact that no other team was willing to pay him more than that. I don't like the fact that he had incredibly pedestrian numbers last year. And I hate to rain on your parade, but he had a monster game in a game against the Rams where the final score was like 55-50. And just both teams put up ridiculous numbers. He had 2 touchdowns, 100 yards in a game where there was literally no defense. So 2 of his 3 touchdowns were like in one game.
I thought he had 5 touchdowns.
Was it 5?
I think he had 5.
A lot of his stats were inflated by that one game I saw, and it was just like, I don't know. There's smoke there. There's smoke with this guy, and where there's smoke, there's usually fire, especially in free agency. In the draft, you could convince me, but in free agency, there's 32 teams doing their homework on this guy, and we got him for that money, for that little money.
That's a good point. But there's also we got him for that money and sometimes a fresh start with the right quarterback.
That's true. And I agree. And I want to think the best for him. But I must say I'm more optimistic about Jake Ryan than I am Chris Conley. And if we drafted a receiver in this year's draft, I think he would fall to 4th on the depth chart. That's just based on what I've seen from him.
Are the receivers that are available?
If we drafted DK Metcalf in the first round, he goes to 4th.
But we're not taking him in the first round.
If we draft N'Keal Harry in the second round, he goes to 4th. If we draft any of these guys...
But to me, that's okay if he does.
He's getting paid $1.8 million.
He's getting $1.8 million.
I agree with you, but let's not get too excited about that. That's what I'm saying.
Again, I agreed. But then you have depth, and you got a practice squad guy, if anything, for 1 point. I mean, okay, I'm good with that.
I think it goes back to it goes back to the fact that they paid Dante Moncrief $10 million last year.
Oh,
and now they're going after a guy, they're only paying him 1.8. It's just, I just like that. And, if he is fourth on the depth chart to start the season, that's fine. I don't think he would end there because injuries happen. And I got to give Joey some credit here. Last week, we were talking about Marquise Lee. I know.
Whoa.
Stop the presses. We're talking about Lee's injury, and he said people aren't talking about it because they don't want to. And I think that's something that should be a real concern, with Marquise Lee just not being the same player. It's not just that he had a torn ACL. It was more than that. So, we need depth. We need depth there. So if he happens to be the fourth, guy on the depth chart, so be it. But at least we have someone that's caught 5 touchdowns in a season as the fourth best wide receiver versus, guys that can't catch the ball. So anyway, I like it, in short.
Here's a question I have about the wide receiver position in Nick Foles. I've been watching a lot of Nick Foles recently, and his 3 favorite receivers over the last 2 years have been Zach Ertz, Alshon Jeffrey, and Torrey Smith. 2 years ago on his Super Bowl run, he used Torrey Smith for the deep ball.
Yeah, it's the speed.
Do we have anyone like any of those 3 guys on our team?
I mean, that guy right there from KC is the speed guy. That's Torrey Smith.
Is he Torrey Smith, though?
He is Torrey Smith.
I don't think he's as fast as Torrey Smith.
Dude, Torrey Smith jumped from like 3 or 4 teams.
He was a burner, though. I mean,
Dude,
but he was
faster than 4.3? I mean,
mean,
there's not much faster than that.
There's
fractions
football
at that
speed,
point.
though. There's football speed.
Fair enough.
Like DJ Chark is fast on the 40, but does he have football speed?
Okay, well, let's just assume that that's our Torrey Smith. So let's go to the other 2 receivers.
Okay,
We do
what
not
about-
have an Alshon Jeffries.
We don't have an Alshon. We don't have a Zach Ertz.
Lee, as a completely healthy, is a poor man's Alshon Jeffries at best.
No. I think Chris Conley's more of an Alshon Jeffrey than Lee is.
Yeah, they're different receivers.
Chris Conley's at least 6'2".
Okay, fair enough.
I'm trying to think.
Chark
Like,
may be.
are they trying to replicate what he's had? Or are they asking him what he prefers? Because
Of course
we
they are.
don't have what he's had.
Of course they are, and that's why we're
my point.
That's why we're taking Hawkinson 7 overall.
Okay. Maybe.
Nice. Joey's staring at me right now. I'm scared.
I think he's pissed.
I figure if I did this like 4 episodes in a row, I'd get like some kind of agreement at some point. Hawkinson, and I would live and die by that.
I like Hawkinson, just not at 7.
I hate him at 7.
The draft
I'm not
is a
saying
little
that.
over a month away from now until then. Every day, I'm going to pray that the Jags get a defensive player for the draft. just
would not
to
mind
see
that.
Joey's reaction.
I wouldn't mind that.
No, I wouldn't either.
That might be our first like live like video feed like episode, just so you can see me like rip my shirt off.
I'll
and,
definitely
like,
record
run
it
out
and
of
post it
Jason's
on.
house.
We'll post it for sure.
All right, speaking of D linemen, Jag fan, and he's at JagFan15. That's a nice.
Jason's getting a 65-inch TV for here, by the way.
Of course he is. They're like
Yeah.
$500 now.
That's what I'm saying.
Why wouldn't you?
And it's going to have a built-in Roku. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a great draft party.
Yeah.
Just put it that way.
Fantastic. Chips and dip.
And wings.
Ooh. And they're picking early, so I'll be in bed by 9.
Even better. Yeah, the 30th pick.
Oh,
that was
gosh,
hard.
that was a
We're
nightmare.
like, all right, what do we talk about now?
Especially when
I'm
we
ready
all
for bed.
sat there in silence
Yeah, I
and
was
they
like,
announced Taven Bryan.
Taven Bryan.
Google Taven Bryan.
All right, this is from Jag Fan, and he's at JagFan15. And he says, do you think Jags are going to pick up any free agent D linemen? Do you guys know any free agent
I
D
honestly have
linemen?
not even looked at free agent D linemen.
Doesn't surprise me at all, Joey.
I mean, why
Why would you do any
though?
homework for this podcast when you can just
That's
come
not
in
my job.
and
That's not our
piggyback off of our
problem.
statements?
Yes.
All right, well, let me tell you some
Easy
guys.
fix.
Wait. Is Hawkinson a defensive lineman? No.
He
Okay.
could
Sorry,
probably
just
play there better than others.
All right, let me tell you some guys that are
Big
available.
enough.
Joey is broing out on Hawkinson.
All right, these are some guys that are available. Ezekiel Ansah. That's the big name that everyone's kind of putting with us right now.
With us?
Yeah. And Ndamukong Suh. We can't afford him. Timmy Jernigan.
FSU.
Corey Lugent. Andre Branch. Sound familiar?
A little bit.
Vinny Curry. Kyle Williams.
Vinny Curry, didn't he just win? Never mind. Go ahead.
As of this article.
Mr. Mayor.
That's Lenny Curry.
Oh, right.
That's
Sorry.
That was
Lenny
actually
Curry.
fantastic, James. Yeah, I voted for him today.
Yeah.
Haloti Ngata retired. Aaron Lynch. Any of those guys? Anything for you? Michael Johnson?
I just, like Joey, I just don't see them spending money there in free agency unless they just get them for a song.
I mean, Ezekiel Ansah, if we gave him a 1-year, $8 million deal.
Timmy Jernigan, too. I'd take him. It'd be like a homecoming for him. He's from, I think, Lake City.
Yeah, but
or Lakeland.
Ansah can play that edge.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think this goes back to what I asked a couple episodes ago. Like, pick your top 5 needs the Jags have, and what's not filled. Like, what do you need?
You need you
You
got
need tight
quarterback.
end. You need right guard.
No, you need
right tackle.
you need lineman. You need receiver. You need
middle linebacker.
no. We've got.
They're not gonna sign a free agent defensive lineman because they're gonna draft one.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's what I'm saying. Whether it's
think you're
free agency or in the draft, I mean, there's some like serious
Yeah.
needs, and then there's like, okay, we can get those guys extra.
Yeah. So no, I don't think so. To answer your question, Jag fan 15. But Ansah would be the guy if there was.
I think possibly a Jernigan.
I don't know though. I mean,
Can get him cheaper than
yeah,
Ansah.
maybe. All right. This question's from Darren Frazier. I haven't seen Darren Frazier in a while.
You know Darren?
We played flag football for one season.
I didn't know if he was still on the team.
Yeah,
I don't
we had
know
1
who he
year.
is, so I haven't
No,
seen
I
him in a
played with him
long
a
time.
couple years.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Tiny.
I was like
Big Darren?
16, but it was.
Okay.
Is Darren
Okay.
from basketball?
Yeah.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
Darren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's at TD Frazee. Frazi? I don't know. He says, besides Foles, which free agent do you think will help make the biggest impact for the Jags?
God, I hope one of the two we just got.
It's not going to be the offensive lineman from Cincinnati. His name is complicated to say, and I'm not going to bother learning it because I don't think he's going to make the team.
Big O, I think is what Bassett is calling him.
Big O. There. That's great. Perfect. I'm all hyped on Connolly, but now listen to Jason and maybe Ryan's the guy. But I think they both kind of give the same production.
I mean, I think with either one of them and the cap space we have and kind of the decisions it looks like they're making, these are really two good, like, potential value picks. So if either one of them turn out great, to answer your question, fantastic.
I think part of the reason too they got him so cheap is because they're both coming off injuries,
which
right?
is fine, man.
So,
I mean, if we've
Who,
got
Conley's not?
Connolly's not.
No.
He didn't have an injury like 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago.
one of them had an
Last year.
Achilles, didn't he?
Last year he was. Yeah, I mean, he did have an injury early in his career, but last year he played the whole year.
Okay.
What about you, Jason? What do you think?
I don't know, man. I like you said, I think they give you the same. Does Matt Overton count as a free agent signing, the long snapper?
Not really, because he was on the team last year, wasn't
so then, yeah, the same. Unless, I mean, yeah.
And that's the thing. We're not really going to make a big splash outside of Foles. I mean, it's just not. We're not capable of it. It's not going to happen.
With our luck, you think the Osama, the lineman, is going to play more snaps than anybody, right? Because there's going to be lineman injuries.
Probably the
And if
biggest
he
plug
can-
and play.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So,
he? Your boy Chris Reed signed elsewhere. I think he signed with the Dolphins.
R.I.P. Chris Reed.
Yeah.
We're going to miss him.
Sorry about that.
All right, not much to that question, but good one nonetheless. I think maybe closer to the season when we have more free agents, we'll be able to more accurately answer that. And seeing how we spent $88 million on one free agent, it's hard to go outside of that guy.
That's right.
$12 million cap space next year. Let's focus on the positives.
But then the next year
Whoa.
is like 20.
Who looks that far in the
Yeah.
future, man?
Okay,
I mean, I don't even
I'm sorry.
remember.
We're going to draft Haskins at 7 and trade him. It won't be
There
our
you go.
problem anymore.
Done, yeah.
All right, this next question is from Burt Macklin, and he's at Craig. And he says, what's the likelihood the Jaguars alter their offense to RPO knowing Foles performs better, but Fournette has been putrid from shotgun?
I'll let you answer this in detail.
Good question. Good point, because I watched so much
Yes,
of Foles.
because I know this is like right up your
Jason said,
wheelhouse.
good point. Let me answer it.
No, it is. It's
I
in
didn't
his-
want to jump in, but
No, dude, it's in his
I saw
wheelhouse.
this.
Great point, Joey. Did not talk about this.
All right.
100%.
I
But I will comment on one thing before
Oh,
you
Jesus, here we
go
go.
into your. I said I will
All
let
right,
you
go ahead.
answer in a second.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I think Fournette could fit that offense very, very well. Just because they didn't use him at LSU like that, he showed flashes of being able to be that guy. So go.
I shout out to Burt Macklin because not a lot of people know what an RPO is. They know what it is, but they don't know what it looks like because a play action and an RPO can look similar. The Eagles ran RPO a lot, and I think we're going to see a lot of RPO. The question, what's the likelihood the Jaguars alter their offense? 100% they're going
It's
to
already
alter their
altered.
offense.
It's completely
We're
altered.
going to see so many RPOs. It's going to be, and here's my issue: is we've evaluated these guys in our minds: Marquise Lee, Keelan Cole, Leonard Fournette. We've evaluated these guys in our minds, but we are going to have to go into this season afresh because we haven't seen these guys in the offense they're about to run. shotgun, spread, RPO. These guys could flourish, or these guys could be terrible in this new offense.
Dede in that offense? I mean,
Dede Westbrook. I'm sorry, I forgot him. Yeah, I think he'll be great. I mean, Dede will probably see the most improvements from this offense because that's what he ran in college when he was a Heisman finalist. So I think we're going to see big things, big changes, and I'm excited. I love the RPO. I think it's one of the best offensive maneuvers you can do because it holds pretty much anybody playing outside of the box until the ball carrier is to the line of scrimmage, which is one of the biggest advantages.
do you think Fournette, like catching the ball and having patience with his running, could?
Well, the thing with the RPO is that the running back doesn't have a lot of receiving duties, but on plays that are non-RPO, they do. So, but to answer your question, I think Fournette thrives in the passing offense.
James?
I don't understand why everyone's so scared of Fournette playing out of the shotgun. I mean, I don't think that necessarily had to do with his skill set, more with what was around him.
Because what he's done his entire life has been line up in the eye, get the ball, and hit the hole.
Yeah,
that's the worry.
He proved last year, though, that he really doesn't want to be that guy, I don't think. He doesn't want the entire weight of the team on his shoulders.
I think he wants to. I just don't think he could last year.
Well, okay, either way.
That's what I'm saying.
At this point, he's got to be like self-realization.
Right.
Hey, that worked all the way up until now, but now I don't have to be that guy. That's got to be like promising for a dude that's like struggled.
Not to mention, like they say, if you want to succeed with RPO, you go to Wisconsin to train.
It's
Wisconsin?
Utah? Wyoming.
It's definitely Wyoming.
Wyoming.
All wrong. It's Wyoming.
Dadgummit, I blew that one. Sorry, I'm fading over here. This new couch is super comfortable, and it's 10:45.
It actually really is.
Yeah. Like, got a pillow.
So the answer to that question, I guess, is yes. I think we will do really well all around with the switch that is happening. It already has happened.
No, I do too. I'm excited to see that as well. So bring it on.
Yeah, it'll be good. All right, this next question, and we only have, just to let you guys know, I know it's getting late, there's only 3 questions left.
Lightning round.
Yeah, and they'll go.
Plus my new segment of Twitter questions that should have been asked.
That y'all have been clamoring for. Joey's newest section.
Clamoring or not, it's happening. So get through these 3.
All right, this next question is from Jason Rat. He's at Rat HCP. He says, "What's your prediction for the Jaguars' record this season?" I'm not going to tell you his prediction until after we're done.
I'm gonna go 8-8.
I was gonna say 9-7.
Oh, wow!
I know.
No 14.
As of right now,
no 14-2
pre-draft. I want to see. I'll give my official prediction after the preseason's over and I've seen them all in action. But for right now, 8-8.
Super early, lots to be said, but yeah.
I think me and J Rad are kind of thinking the same thing right now. I agree with him. I think we're about at 10-6.
I love it. I love it.
So 10-6, and he says assuming we have a good draft, and I'm assuming that we will, because they're going to listen to us and do exactly as we say. All right, this question is from Lulu Lemon's newest elite ambassador.
Okay.
And he's at That's Ham 87.
It's a he?
That's Nick Foles. He's talking about Nick Foles. Nick Foles is sponsored by Lululemon.
Is he really?
Yeah. It came out the day before he signed with the Jags. He was like their official first ever either NFL or pro athlete spokesperson.
I could see the Under Armour gear, Lululemon.
No, Lululemon is yoga, but they do other stuff.
I know what Lululemon is. I'm saying you could wear Lululemon as Under Armour gear or Nike Armour.
Yes.
All right, fair enough.
I don't know. He said, what would your least appealing realistic draft pick be at 7?
There's what's his name? It's a tight end out of Iowa, Hawkinson, I think. Is that his name?
Metcalf.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, Metcalf. Of all the ones that have been floated out there,
Metcalf is the most overhyped, overrated. I'm amazed that he's not going to the Raiders, because that's the pick that those guys would take normally.
Hey, who knows? They may.
It's hard for me to find someone in the top pick who I would not be happy with. I mean, I'm looking through all these names, and I wouldn't mind any of these guys. The only name that stands out to me that I would just throw up at if we drafted is Devin White, the linebacker out of LSU, who's mocked to go before us.
Why is that?
Because he's the best linebacker in the draft.
I mean, why would you throw up at that though?
Because I haven't even heard of him, and I usually the last player that was drafted in the top 10 that I never heard of. You want to know who it was?
Jokel?
Tyson Alulu.
Oh yeah,
That was the last player that I've never heard of that we've drafted.
yeah.
And I literally was like, what? And look what happened.
That's good enough
So
for me.
Devin White, yeah, so that's it. This is the last question. This is part of the bad question of the week challenge.
Ooh, I like it.
And this is from Brent Papineau. And he says, I heard this guy will be an all-pro. If he drops to us at 7, would you take him? Jack Fox, punter at a Rice.
Okay, I'm sorry. At 7?
All pro.
Hey.
At a Rice?
He averaged 45.5 yards per punt with a long of 76.
Well, I mean, hey, a 76-yard punt's impressive. I'll
Gotta
give
take
him
him.
that. But
Got to take him.
I think that wins the bad question of the week right there.
yeah,
It's a,
Okay,
game
so
it's a game of field positions.
So here's the... Oh, gosh. I'm sorry, guys.
Another one?
Yeah. This isn't bad, but this is... We'll go lightning here real quick.
Okay.
King at the Noah Bennett. He says, why would Blake only sign a $1 million contract and do us like that?
ding, 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 ding. That was going to be my
that-
segment of the Twitter question that was not asked.
Oh, man.
Mr. Noah Bennett, thanks for stealing my thunder. Dude, complete FU to the Jags, man, for, hey, you gave me nothing around me for as wide receivers. You gave me nothing around me for as offensive line. I'm going to take the lowest offer possible, go somewhere cool, and spend your cash. I mean, because, hey, Denver was involved. Baltimore was interested. He definitely could have got more than 1 year, $1 million.
To be fair, I would sign with LA for $1 million over any of those teams you
Absolutely. You got a chance of winning a Super Bowl.
mentioned. Yeah. And LA is not in a good cap position right now, like we've already talked about.
LA does not have a cap.
So if they were like, hey, Blake, come here for $1 million, and then Baltimore's like, hey, Blake, come here for $3 million, and you're like, either way, I'm getting the same amount of money, wouldn't you go to LA too?
You have to admit, though, there was a little bit of something in that.
Would you have acted differently is my
I
question.
would not acted any differently whatsoever.
What about you, James? Would you have acted any differently?
The Super Bowl aspect is the most appealing thing for me in that situation. I would love to live in Denver.
Over California?
Yeah.
Living your best life?
Over LA, yes.
Beach Bortles?
Yes. Me personally. Baltimore, no. But
We're acting like we are Bortles, though, in this question, I think.
well, I mean,
Where would you go if you were Bortles?
if you're Bortles, you're probably trying to figure out if Hawaii has a football team or something like that. But no, I mean, it makes total sense. Listen, I mean, at the same time, let's calm down a little bit. Bortles wasn't good. You know, and I mean, I know he didn't have a lot of weapons or whatever, but still, what kills me though is $1 million is still low. I mean, I read somewhere if you've been in the league for 4 years, the veterans minimum is like a little over $800,000. So they got him just above that at $1 million. I mean, that is dirt cheap.
Dude, if a Tyrod Taylor is going to command 5 or 6, Bortles should be making more.
And you know, to the Rams' credit, they got a backup who's a veteran and who is incredibly durable. He's a locker room guy, so it's a really good signing on their part. I don't think we're talking enough about that aspect of it. That they got a solid backup quarterback now that can come in and, you know, with weapons around them, at least keep you in a game as long as he doesn't throw any, you know, costly interceptions.
And Bortles just needs 9 more years and he gets his pension on top of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to know how much of that $1 million, what the taxes are for that.
Dude, I told you, it's 10 street tacos and a case of Corona.
He's getting the same money regardless of
And
where
an
he
avocado.
goes. So regardless of where he goes, he's getting $6.5 million.
Right.
Regardless. It's just where it's coming from. So good for him to go to a good team.
Yeah, good. And we are all very happy for him.
Happy
I think most Jags fans are.
I'm not knocking it, but tongue in cheek, dude, it's kind of funny.
All right, last question. This is from Patrick Jackson, and he's at Radius_Johansson. And he says,
Is this really the last question?
This is the last question.
Okay.
I know I said that a couple
Did
times.
this come in like 30 seconds ago?
Nope.
All right.
And he says, who's your favorite non-Jags sports person and why?
Of all time or right now?
I would say of all time.
I'm thinking right now if you're not specifying all time.
Well, I thought about this question, and I was thinking all time, so we're going to have to go with all time.
All right, we'll go with all time.
All right, I'll answer first because I've had time to think about it. I know y'all haven't. But mine all time is Patrick Waugh, goalie for the Colorado Avalanche. Played with the Canadians, played with the Avalanche, won 2 Conn Smythe trophies, only goalie to ever do that. greatest goalie of all time. I know he doesn't have the wins on Martin Brodeur, but he is just hands down the best goalie of all
You
time.
sound like Charlie Brown's
That
teacher.
is like the most non-Florida answer to that question.
I know, and people are going to think I'm some like hockey nut. I'm not, but I'm just a big Patrick Waugh fan.
I mean, I've heard of Patrick Waugh, and I'm not a hockey fan
Yeah.
either, so I mean,
Yeah.
he's obviously a stud. But I mean, off the cuff, dude, Michael Jordan. I mean,
Really?
gotta go with it. Absolutely. Talking about growing up in the 80s, man, WGN. Dude, when I was watching TV when I was like 7 or 8, we had like 3 channels and one of them was Chicago Sports. So, dude, that was his heyday. That was what I watched like all the time. A guy who, talking about backstory, like barely made his high school team, walked on at North Carolina, all hustle, all determination, will to win, and just practice, man, and is the GOAT.
I thought you were going to say a soccer player.
Well, I mean, I could easily go that route, but as far as like,
I like that answer, Joey.
All right.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
sticking with it.
not like saying it's a bad. I just was expecting a soccer
No,
player.
I'm sticking with it.
Okay, cool. I mean, it should be obvious for me. Chipper Jones.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Hall of Famer, won a World Series with the Braves, lifetime Braves fan or a player. You never played for any other team. Played at Bulls here in Jacksonville. Just, of course, Chipper Jones.
I thought Dale Murphy, but okay.
I was a little young. Dale Murphy was kind of coming out of the
Our
league.
2-year difference like makes a big difference.
Well, it does. I think
It does.
You know,
actually.
it does.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like,
So I mean, I would wish I would have seen more of Dale Murphy. And then you could also say, you know, John Smoltz would probably be number 2 because he was just so
I would
dominant.
definitely pick Chipper second as far as Braves go. So,
Yeah. So I mean, that's me, Chipper.
Chipper.
Yeah, Chipper. Okay, real quick before we sign off, and I mean real quick, we do have the college basketball tournament coming. There's a tradition on this podcast to give our Final Four selections and who we think is going to win it overall. Jason isn't prepared at all. Joey and I are. Joey,
I'm making the sign over here to give me like 2 minutes on a break so I can finalize.
I'll go with mine then, since y'all aren't ready.
Aren't we going to have
Are we
time
just
on
picking the
next
winner?
week's to pick?
If we're
I don't
picking
know. The
winner,
tournament
I'm good.
starts on Thursday. We gotta give our predictions before
Thursday is
tomorrow.
Is like an hour from now.
Yeah.
But
God,
if we're
Lord.
just picking the winner, I'm good. If you want my Final Four prediction, I need like 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously?
Yes, I do.
I'm ready now.
Okay, go
So-
ahead, Jason.
All right.
You go, Joey.
All right. Well, I'll let James go, and then,
All right.
then I'll go.
Apparently
No one knows what ready means around here. I'm picking my Final Four team as Duke, UNC, Virginia, and Florida State in all ACC Final Four. Picking Duke and UNC in the championship game, and I'm picking UNC to beat Duke in the championship game.
UNC's going to beat Duke with Zion,
Duke only beat them by 1 in the ACC tournament.
and Zion's like first game back.
No, it was like his third. But I mean, he was practicing with them all that time. He wasn't really hurt. They were just resting him for the tournament. And look, UNC is good. They are Duke's biggest threat, and I just think this is why I did it, because every time you have these teams like Duke has these 4 amazing freshmen, they never win the championship. They get there just like, you know, Michigan never won the championship. So I'm going to say that trend continues and UNC upsets Duke.
All right, I'm going to say Duke, Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky, and
2 SEC teams?
Yeah,
Michigan?
and
Okay.
Duke beats Kentucky for the championship.
Okay.
All right, well, I guess I have to say Duke, Michigan State. And then we're going to go. The other side's a little tougher, man. Tennessee and
Michael Jordan played at UNC.
he did.
Little known fact.
All right, UNC.
And who wins it all?
Dude, just, how can you not pick Duke, man? Unless
Okay.
homeboy gets hurt. I mean,
Yeah,
they're just they
yeah, they're just
can't match up
another
with that.
level.
Plus, he's
Yeah,
getting
they
all the
are.
calls. I
like
mean,
half an NBA team.
if you look at the last few games, I mean, like he's like bowling over people, and they're not calling it because they know everybody wants to watch him play. They're not going to let him get into foul trouble. I mean, Zion's the man, so I think that definitely.
I
factors
like the
in.
fact that you picked them in part to a conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory. That's not dude, it's factual. It's about ratings, man. Come on.
Hey, I agree 100%.
Some of the shoe companies like calling up
man.
the NCAA, be like, "Hey, bro, can't get in foul
Everything is a
trouble.
conspiracy
Cannot
theory.
Get in foul trouble.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The older you get, the more that happens.
It's true.
The rest of you guys will find that out.
Yeah.
the older guys are the guys who watch Charlie and the Charlie Factory. Which
That's a good show, man.
Which
Buddy
are-
was hilarious.
Charlie, dude. Charles in charge.
Charles
My
in
bad.
charge
My
of
bad.
our day.
Buddy, the annoying
Yeah.
friend, man. He was like a male
I thought
nanny.
about Charlie and Chocolate Factory. My bad.
Dude.
Yeah. All right. I think that wraps it up. It has to. It's so late. That's it for
late.
It's so late.
Barely 11.
It's 11. I'm never up this
I
late.
haven't even gone out yet, boys.
Oh goodness gracious! The thought of doing that would make me cry. Honestly, I'll just cry. That's it for episode 60 of Another Jags podcast. Thanks to all those that chimed in on Twitter. If you don't have Twitter, chime in some other way. Get on YouTube, get on Facebook or Instagram. Let us know what you're thinking there. That's going to wrap it up. As always, go Jags.